Have you ever wondered if walking away from traditional relationships after 50 or 60 might actually be the wisest decision you've ever made? Here's what might surprise you. While society pushes the narrative that companionship is non-negotiable at any age, a growing body of evidence suggests something different entirely. Research from the Pew Research Center shows that an increasing number of men over 50 are choosing to remain single, and they're reporting higher life satisfaction than their coupled counterparts. This isn't about bitterness or failure, it's about clarity. Today we're walking through 7 specific evidence-backed reasons why having a girlfriend after 50 or 60 might not serve your best interests. These aren't opinions. They're observations drawn from psychological research, demographic studies, and the lived experiences of thousands of men who've shared their stories across forums, therapy sessions, and academic surveys. Before we dive in, I want to know where you're at with this. If you're currently navigating this question yourself, type navigating in the comments below. If you've already made the choice to stay single and you're feeling solid about it, type settled. And if you're simply curious about what the research says, type curious. This isn't a judgment, it's a checkpoint. Knowing where you stand helps me understand who I'm speaking with today. Reason 1. Financial stability and independence. Let's start with something concrete. Your financial security. After 50 or 60, you've likely spent decades building something. A retirement account, property, investments, peace of mind. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Marriage and Family found that men who enter relationships later in life face significantly higher financial risk, particularly in the event of separation or divorce. The data is stark. Divorce after 50, often called gray divorce, has doubled since the 1990s according to the National Center for Family and Marital Research at Bowling Green State University. And here's the part that matters to you. Men in these late-life divorces lose on average more than 40% of their net worth. Women, by contrast, often see financial gains or stability through alimony and asset division. This isn't about being cynical. It's about being realistic. When you're in your 50s or 60s, you don't have another 30 years to rebuild. Your earning power is likely peaking or declining. Your time to recover from a financial setback is limited. Relationship experts like Dr. Susan Brown, who has studied gray divorce extensively, note that the financial consequences for older men are often catastrophic and underestimated. You're not being selfish by protecting what you've built. You're being prudent. And if you've already been through one divorce, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The question isn't whether love is real. It's whether the financial risk is worth it at this stage of your life. For many men, the honest answer is no. Reason 2. Freedom and autonomy. Over your time. Here's something you might have noticed. Time feels different now. You're more aware of how you spend it, what you're willing to tolerate, what you're not. A relationship at this age doesn't just ask for your companionship. It asks for your schedule, your routines, your spontaneity, and often, your hard-won independence. Research published in the Journal of Gerontology found that men over 50 place significantly higher value on personal autonomy than they did in their younger years. This isn't about being antisocial. It's about finally understanding what matters. Dr. Bella DiPaolo, a social psychologist at the University of California, has spent years studying single life. Her work consistently shows that single men over 50 report greater satisfaction with their daily routines and personal freedom, compared to married or partnered men in the same age group. Think about your week. You want to take a trip? You book it. You want to spend Saturday in silence working on a project? You do it. You want to see friends or not see anyone at all? That's your call. Now imagine running every decision, every plan, every preference through someone else's emotional filter, someone else's needs, someone else's expectations. On Reddit forums like r@AskMenOver30 and r/DivorceMen, this theme appears constantly. Men describe the relief of reclaiming their time, not having to explain, not having to negotiate, not having to compromise on things that, frankly, don't need compromise. You've earned this autonomy. You've spent decades meeting other people's needs, your employers, your families, maybe a previous partner's. Why would you voluntarily surrender that now? Reason 3. Emotional labor and expectations. This one runs deep, and it's something that doesn't get discussed nearly enough. Relationships require emotional labor. That's always been true. But here's what changes after 50 or 60. The women in your age bracket often come with decades of their own relational history, their own unmet needs, their own expectations about what you should provide emotionally. A landmark study from the American Sociological Association found that women in midlife and beyond increasingly expect their male partners to function as their primary emotional support system, therapist, and social coordinator. That's a heavy load, especially when you're also navigating your own transitions. Maybe you're dealing with aging parents. Maybe you're processing career shifts or health changes. Maybe you're finally trying to figure out who you are outside of the roles you've played your whole life. Dr. John Gottman, whose research on relationships spans over 4 decades, has noted that emotional reciprocity often becomes imbalanced in later life relationships. One partner, typically the man, ends up shouldering disproportionate emotional responsibility. And here's the part that's difficult to say out loud. Many men report that they're expected to be endlessly patient, endlessly understanding, endlessly available, but when they need emotional support, the reciprocity isn't there. You see this pattern discussed extensively on platforms like AARP's online forums and in men's support groups. The frustration isn't about being unwilling to care. It's about the one-sidedness. It's about realizing that your emotional bandwidth is finite and you'd rather spend it on yourself, your genuine friendships, or pursuits that actually restore you, not deplete you. Reason 4. Health and stress management. Let's talk about something that directly affects your longevity: your stress levels. Study after study has shown that chronic relationship stress accelerates aging and contributes to serious health conditions: heart disease, high blood pressure, depression, cognitive decline. Research from Harvard Medical School found that men in high conflict or emotionally draining relationships face significantly elevated cortisol levels. Cortisol is your body's primary stress hormone, and when it's chronically elevated, it damages everything: your cardiovascular system, your immune function, your sleep quality, your mental clarity. Now contrast that with men who live peacefully alone. A 2021 study in the journal Social Science and Medicine found that single men who maintain strong friendships and engage in meaningful hobbies report lower stress and better overall health outcomes than men in unsatisfying relationships. The key phrase there is unsatisfying relationships. And here's the uncomfortable truth. After 50 or 60, the odds of finding a truly satisfying, low-conflict relationship are not in your favor. You both come with history, baggage, patterns. If this conversation is hitting home, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It tells the algorithm this conversation matters. Reason 5. The reality of caregiving expectations. Here's a conversation most people avoid, but we're going to have it directly. When you enter a relationship after 50 or 60, you're not just signing up for companionship. You're potentially signing up to become a caregiver. And the statistics on this are sobering. According to research from the Family Caregiver Alliance, women live longer than men on average by about 5 to 7 years. But here's what matters more. Women in this age bracket often experience chronic health conditions earlier and more frequently. A study published in The Gerontologist found that men who become informal caregivers for their partners after age 60 report dramatic declines in their own health, social connections, and quality of life. You might think you're entering a relationship for romance, travel, and shared experiences. But the reality, especially as you both move into your 70s, is often very different. You become the person managing medications, driving to appointments, handling the emotional weight of someone else's declining health. And let's be clear about something else. The expectation of caregiving flows one direction more often than not. Research from AARP's Caregiving in the U.S. report consistently shows that men provide care to female partners at rates far exceeding the reverse. This isn't a hypothetical. On forums across the internet, from our caregiver support to dedicated Facebook groups for older men, you'll find countless stories. Men who thought they were building a partnership, and instead found themselves becoming a full-time unpaid nurse at an age when they should be enjoying the freedom they've earned. You're not cold-hearted for considering this. You're being honest about what late-life relationships often become. And if you've watched friends go through this, you already know. The burden is real, the resentment builds, and the life you envisioned disappears. Reason 6. Incompatibility of life goals and energy levels. Let's talk about something subtler but equally important. Alignment. When you were younger, building a life together meant you were both figuring things out. You had time to grow into shared goals. But after 50 or 60, you've already built your life. You know what you want, what you don't want, how you like to spend your days. And here's where it gets tricky. The women you might date in this age range, they've built their lives too. They have their own non-negotiables, their own routines, their own visions for what the next chapter should look like. Dr. Terry Orbuck, a relationship researcher who's followed couples for over 3 decades through the University of Michigan's long-term study, notes something critical. Couples who come together later in life experience significantly higher rates of conflict over lifestyle incompatibility. One person wants to travel extensively. The other wants to stay close to grandchildren. One person wants a quiet, minimalist life. The other wants constant social engagement. One person has high energy and ambitious plans. The other is slowing down, managing health issues, preferring routine. Neither person is wrong. But the relationship becomes a constant negotiation, a constant compromise. And here's what you might have learned by now. Compromise sounds noble, but in practice, especially when you're both set in your ways, it often means both people end up slightly miserable. The Atlantic ran a widely discussed piece in 2022 exploring this exact phenomenon. They interviewed dozens of men and women who'd attempted relationships after 60. The most common theme? Exhaustion from trying to merge 2 fully formed, incompatible lives. You see this echoed in advice columns, therapy discussions, and honest conversations between friends. At this stage, you've earned the right to live exactly as you choose. Why trade that for perpetual negotiation? Reason 7. The cultural shift in what you actually need. Here's the final piece, and it might be the most important. What you actually need from life has changed. The drives that pushed you toward relationships in your 20s, 30s, even your 40s, they're different now. Research in developmental psychology, particularly the work of Erik Erikson and those who've built on his theories, shows that men in later life shift from a focus on intimacy and achievement to a focus on integrity and meaning. You're less interested in proving anything, less interested in external validation, more interested in internal peace. A comprehensive study from the Stanford Center on longevity found that men over 60 increasingly prioritize solitude, reflection, and deep friendships over romantic partnerships. This isn't isolation, it's intentional connection. The Guardian published a feature in 2023 profiling men who'd chosen to remain single after 50. The through line in every story? They didn't feel like they were missing anything. They had friends, hobbies, purpose, community when they wanted it, solitude when they needed it. The relationship escalator, dating, commitment, cohabitation, enmeshment, no longer felt necessary. It felt like a step backward. Dr. Bella DePaulo's research, which I mentioned earlier, reinforces this. Single men in this demographic aren't lonely. They're liberated. They've discovered that a girlfriend isn't a requirement for a meaningful life. Sometimes, she's actually an obstacle to it. And once you see that clearly, it's hard to unsee. How many relationships have you witnessed that looked more like obligations than joys? How many men do you know who seem to have shrunk their lives to fit someone else's expectations? If you know the answer, you understand exactly why this seventh reason matters so deeply. This next point is worth sitting with. And if you're still here, I'd love your take. Comment "still here" below. It genuinely helps me gauge what content is most valuable for you, so I can create more of it. So let's bring this together. These 7 reasons aren't random observations. They're patterns documented by researchers, discussed by therapists, and lived by thousands of men who've had the courage to question the default narrative. The narrative that says you need a romantic partner to be complete. That solitude equals loneliness. That choosing yourself is somehow selfish. The data, the expert analysis, and the lived experience of men just like you tell a different story. Your financial security matters. Your autonomy matters. Your emotional bandwidth matters. Your health matters. Your freedom from caregiving obligations you didn't sign up for matters. Your right to live according to your own goals and energy levels matters. And your understanding of what you actually need at this stage? That matters most of all. You're not broken for choosing this path. You're awake. I'm genuinely curious. Which of these 7 reasons resonated most with you? Or is there another reason you've discovered, something from your own experience, that we didn't cover here? Share your story in the comments. This community grows stronger when we speak honestly about what we've learned. If this conversation added value to your day, please let me know by liking the video. It makes a real difference. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to join this growing community of men seeking clarity and confidence. Hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell. Thank you for your time and attention, and I'll see you in the next video.